that was a quick lunch. When court starts up again, I might jump back to fix a few things I didn't fix in the kitchen while I had to run back. Me and Jamie shouldn't be talking so much behind the scenes, but yeah, sometimes you have a lot of time, and some other times you have none time, no time at all. But it's part of being a YouTuber. Hey, Luna. At least some liveness involved. Yeah, might be. Hey, Fed. Danny G, hello. And yes, C-Swep, this is live. Where else would you see, if it wasn't alive, The Invisible Man? And Irish. Hey, Stephanie. But yeah, everyone had a nice lunch. My dinner was way too quick. But the show must go on, as someone said sometime. And hopefully they will start on time in court. But it was a pretty good morning show, I would say, or morning session. The defense, I really, really adore that defense lawyer. She is a pit bull that's crossed with a Wolverine and marinated in a little bit of a honey badger sauce. Hey, Jamie, did you eat?
Yeah, I got a sandwich.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump off and clean something in the kitchen because I had to just throw something down.
Did you?
Yeah, I had bought so I could make burgers again today. So frying them, toasting the buns, and all the stuff, and eating it. So it went a bit fast, but it doesn't matter because we're back to entertain the best chat on the internets.
Oh.
And I have to, and yeah, and talking about the best chats. Please, everyone, if there's new people here, or participate in the chat, because that's what I like to do when I'm going on streams and talking to people. Is write questions if you have any. Probably I know something about what's going on in the case. I've listened to all of it. And participate. It makes it more fun to watch cases when you can talk to the people. And Jamie and I are very fond of talking to new people, and we hope if there's new people here, they want to join in. Even Bargy McBarkson likes to talk, as you can hear in the background.
I don't know why they do that. They're just so random.
Well, it's fun. But no, if anyone is new, and please, if you're new, if you like to subscribe and watch this monkey pushing button and talking about trials, please do. And again, please participate, because it makes it more interesting for us to see what are the chat thinking about, because we kind of get a feeling where some of our regulars see cases are going, but it could be interesting to hear how other people, because when I go to other chats, you normally see some people who has seen a totally different case than I have seen. So it's always nice to have new input.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just to shell something. But Jamie, we are in agreement that the defense lawyer is a really good lawyer.
I like her. I love her hair. I love her outfits. I love her necklaces. I love her attitude. She's just, and like, she knows how to question them in a way that makes them look like fools.
Yeah, because every time they say, well, I'm not sure, I don't know if I know that. Oh, let me read what you said. And again, this is the fourth time this trial is running.
Yeah.
And she's impeaching them with everything they said in the first, second, and third trial.
Yeah.
and and it's just so obvious. Everyone has been instructed to talk about rigor mortis and that the paint was wet because it fell the first two times because they had a hung jury, and the third time they got a conviction, but it was overturned. And then they had a paint expert talking about how long the paint could have been on the body and what that has to do with the time of death. I'm not sure, but still, it's they try to really push the timeline so she could have done it before she left to go shopping.
Yeah.
Jung Min, there was a drawing this morning.
Oh
There
my
was the rigor mortis test. This is how you
Belly,
test.
get ready. Get ready. Oh my God, I can't even. We need Baker coffee cups, guys.
Yeah, shaking the arms to test if the person is into rigor.
Yep.
And again, if anyone is new here, that's kind of what we do. We have fun, even though we're watching a.
Everyone would be like, "What am I drinking?" If I had coffee cups with everyone in Baker's drawings, my family would think, like, what is happening in your life?
China, you have to take it out at Christmas.
Oh my God.
Like Farrell's back. Hello, Melissa Jane is here. Oh, everyone loves Jamie.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Jim. Yeah, but the boobs have been a big part of the first three witnesses' testimony too. So we needed the boobs. You can never have enough boobs. So no, so that's the drawing of the day is how to figure out when someone was unalive by way of shaking their wrist, because that's how you determine rigor. We have two EMTs testify to that. I believe it would make the coffee taste better if you had the official rigor mortis watch.
Or the corner mouth kiss, or my favorite, the Karen Reed case.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
funny.
I forgot to do that, but we had the corner kisser.
Don't put that up when I'm taking a drink of water. Oh my God, I almost passed away. All right.
Hey, Cindy. Jamie is in timeout. Yeah, she goes in and out of timeout whenever I put up the corner kisser. And for those of you who haven't been here, it yesterday we were told about the corner kisser. That's the dead wife of the defendant. They are a lesbian couple, a lesbian married couple. They were in a divorce, then they got back together, and then she was dead. When she was dead, they found out that besides her wife, she also had a work buddy friend who gave her uh, three credit cards so she could build up some credit. She built up $7,000 in debt on this guy's credit card, but he only had he was only allowed to kiss her on the corner of the mouth. That's why we needed to have and if you're a person who doesn't understand so much by listening, we draw a little description. So this is the corner kisser and the 7K. So yeah, I'm kind of strange sometimes. I'm sorry, but we learned about him yesterday, and then we learned that while she was with the corner kisser guy, she also had another girlfriend. So it's all the things. Jamie puts herself in the corner. Yeah.
I'm back.
No, she's kind of in a quadruple because she has a wife, She has a girlfriend and she has a boyfriend. Oh, I forgot. The wife also has a boyfriend. And then there's the murder victim. So it's a quintuple. There's 5 people involved somehow. But the
Yeah.
police never investigated this guy she owed 7K. They've only found out later. And not to be creepy or anything, but she had a pink sleeping bag at the fire station, which she slept in after the murder. Oh, I forgot to say, he was married to another woman, which he lied about giving her the credit cards. So, but police never looked into him. Didn't seem important for the case. And there's so much going on in this case. It's a really, really fun case. And again, the best defense lawyer I think I have seen since maybe since Johnny Depp. Camille
Yes.
had some of the same things.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, it's like quit being shifty on the stand, because if she's asking you a question, she already knows the answer, and just answer the question. You don't have to be shifty and argue, because she's gonna get you.
Did I say hello to you, Mim? Or else I did it now. Hello, Mim.
Hey, ma'am.
Yeah, this could be we need Flux on to say if this is the lesbian time of your life or days of our life. Hey, Lefty. Or are you Lefty?
Hi, Lefty.
There's multiple Lefty.
Rest in peace, Lefty. Rest in peace.
But no, it's and now we're gonna have we have 2 cops already on the stand and 1 EMT, and now we're gonna have another EMT that was at the scene. And there's so many things they try to make look like she kind of was a cold B word after the murder, and the talk about the big boobs of the deceased. But again, it's a medical condition, and I was informed by all you ladies that even though we guys like them big, they can be a hassle. So, and again, you would mention that maybe she's talking about she was sleeping. She didn't sleep too good because she had back pain. I know, as a guy with 2 herniated discs, when your back is killing you, you don't sleep well. And if she had big bazookas and they made her back hurt, I could understand if she said, "Couldn't you please take the kid away so I can get some sleep? She's making too much noise." It's totally it's totally understandable. Probably, I would think.
I hope so. I hope they're bringing him in.
I took pictures of one of my art pieces yesterday. I put it in Discord, I believe.
So,
yeah, I read that domestic violence is way up in that community. That's a sad
I
thing.
wanted to discuss one thing. There's been a lot of
Hey, Murph.
refreshing
Miss you.
of witnesses'
Oh,
memories with reports, but also transcripts of prior testimony. And I think it might be, and want to see how the parties feel about this, but it might be wise for me to explain what it means to refresh a witness's memory.
oh, that's not, I thought he would try to pull it.
Otherwise,
Hey, Murph, welcome.
I'm concerned that the jury is
Yeah,
going to
please
expect
like
me
all the YouTube things. You
some of
know
these
the drill.
reports or, transcripts when they go to review the
I'm
exhibits.
just gonna take a picture of my drawing and then I'm gonna put the stuff away in the
And-
kitchen while
and
this
part
starts.
of that instruction,
You run
I
the
was
show.
thinking it
You're the
might
captain
also
now.
be wise just to
All right.
instruct them not to speculate or consider the reasons for this prior testimony. Your thoughts?
Hey, Paige. Who else did I see?
Treasure, I think it's fine to give that form of instruction. I think it makes sense to give that to them. Before you had mentioned it, I was typing up a limiting instruction that we were hoping Your Honor would give at some point regarding the prior court proceedings, but I agree it makes sense given what you're going to do about refreshing memory to get it now. I think the point is also for them to not speculate what those prior proceedings were, why they occurred, and specifically telling them that they're not to consider in any way that there were prior court proceedings in which there was testimony. That issue, the fact that there were prior court proceedings in which there was testimony, is not relevant to the issues that they will decide in the case.
I'm sorry.
Wait, what?
I don't have any issue with the court saying that they should, as far as whether or not there was prior proceedings. I do have an issue with saying that they're not relevant, because to the extent that these witnesses adopted what they said previously, it's in substantively. And I don't want the jury to think that they can't consider it. And my concern with some language that would say it's not relevant, they could then decide that my entire cross-examination was a waste of their time and I don't want to be there.
Can I clarify around saying
Sure.
the fact that a prior court proceeding was held in which a witness testified is not relevant. But in terms of testimony or statements that the witness was examined about, those can be considered by the jury for these limited purposes.
Right, so what I was planning on saying is that, just to remind them that they are to limit their evaluation of this case to evidence that they received during the trial.
Hey, Sorbert.
With that in mind, they should not speculate about or consider in any way the reason for any prior proceeding where testimony was taken in this matter. I am concerned because I agree that it's not that they should ignore what they're hearing, and it's one thing when a witness's memory is refreshed. That is something, it's really just the testimony that they should be considering. But to the extent that the prior testimony is used to impeach, and because it was sworn testimony in a prior trial, it doesn't come in just for that limited purpose. So I understand Attorney Capicchio's concern there. And again, I don't want to confuse the jury, and if the part, that's why I'm asking whether it makes sense from your perspective to do this now. I can wait. And I think we have a fairly intelligent jury. I think they intuitively understand what the attorneys are doing. I think when the attorneys are doing it, I think it's relatively clear what you are using this prior testimony for, when you are using it, or a prior police report, etc. So I'm also, I would be fine saying nothing at this point, but I just thought I would put that out there. If there is some sort of agreement, I will do it. If there's some sort of objection, I want to hear that. So you tell me, and what would you like me to do? So,
I'm just looking in terms of, I was able to look at the breaks and language that Judge Ruth had used in this trial before when this issue came up. And so specifically, what I would suggest Your Honor give is language that says you have heard during the course of the testimony of some of the witnesses references to prior court testimony or prior court proceedings. I instruct you that you are not in any way to speculate about or talk about what prior court proceedings may have happened in this case. And you're not to infer anything from the fact that there may have been prior court proceedings. I think that could then be a lead-in. I don't know exactly what language Your Honor is planning to use in terms of the refreshing, but I think that's sort of the lead-in to, however, it is relevant under these circumstances so you can understand why a witness's memory is being refreshed. Again, I don't know what language you're going to use, but I think you're saying it can be considered for this, but it is relevant and can be considered, and I'm giving you an understanding of how it can be used by you.
So why don't we do this? I don't think it's necessary to give this instruction at this moment. Or even
Only
today.
Luna gets those kind of
But,
pictures.
I've raised the issue. And I suppose it also goes to whether I instruct on
Nice.
each minute. And again, it's a bit more complicated here because we have statements that are maybe inconsistent statements that are coming from police reports, but we also have statements coming from prior sworn testimony. So it may be it may be more confusing to instruct on that. And again, just for your consideration. So I'm going to table this. We'll just proceed with this. I think so long as if I'm going to give this instruction, I'd like to give it early on.
I was trying to, couldn't hear all of it. Are they complaining because they don't want
There's a disagreement.
the defense alluding to there were other trials?
Decide what their position really is. I'm not gonna-
Probably, but still,
We'll just finish with this witness, and then my understanding is that after this witness, the Commonwealth intends to call Dr. Richmond.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So you may recall from my endorsement on a motion concerning Dr. or the extent to which Dr. Richmond can rely on information she received from Trooper McGarian, that I believe I indicated that if Trooper McGarian had not been called prior to her testimony, that I would conduct a voir dire on the specific issue of whether Dr. Richmond could be meaningfully cross-examined on that point. So again, what I have in mind is a very sort of narrow or narrowly focused voir dire on that issue. I have read the transcript of her prior testimony. I don't need any background or a lead up to the relevant part, but what I'm looking for is testimony that will cover to the extent that she relied on any information that she provided. My recollection is that she made reference to him in her testimony on a number of occasions, but it's not clear to me what actual information he provided that she relied on, at least information that he came by directly, as opposed to simply conveying what other first responders told him. And those first responders, I believe, will have all testified by the time she takes the stand. To the extent that she relied on him, then the question is, can the defense cross-examine her on those underlying facts in a way that's meaningful? So if her response is time and time again on salient points, you have to ask Trooper McGarian about that, then that may cause some concern for me. So that's what I have in mind. I'm thinking if we finish with this witness, we can take perhaps an afternoon break. If the voir dire shouldn't take more than, say, 15 minutes. Again, it should be very narrow. And then if we can proceed with her testimony with the jury, then that's what we'll do after that. Okay? Yes, Your Honor. Okay.
yeah. So we just want to tell them what refreshing their recollection means. I'm not thinking he's going to keep it out. But now we get to the part with the rigor and the wet paint. There's a lady who plays on the VGA. But already a doctor who relied on evidence or testimony from other people she didn't talk to. It's going to be interesting, because then they can cross-examine her.
Stuff she heard from the trooper.
Court's side of the
That's-
question?
Yeah, McGarian. But if she only heard it from him, then she can't be cross-examined by the defense because she doesn't have any first-hand knowledge about it.
May I inquire, Your Honor?
Right.
Thank you. Mr. Pandora, before the break, we were speaking about your various career background and your qualifications as a firefighter and paramedic. And I just wanted to show you a document here. Do you recognize that?
Yes,
What do you recognize that to be?
it's my resume.
Okay, does that outline the various topics that you covered this morning in terms of your educational background, training, and experience?
Yes,
Here, at this point, I just asked Deputy Mark for identification. H for ID. I want to turn to the date of March 29th, 2010. Do you remember working as a paramedic on that date?
yes,
Okay. And do you remember where you were located at approximately 7:15 p.m. that night?
prior to the call coming in, I was at the station
Okay.
conducting a union meeting,
Okay. And what station was that?
fire station.
Okay.
Oh, so we should have
And
Nicholas
is that where
on.
you
That's a
worked
union
as of
guy.
March 29th, 2010?
Yes,
And can you just remind us what role you worked at the Granby Fire as of that particular date?
I was the ambulance coordinator. I think at that time I was also, had been promoted to a lieutenant.
Okay. And did you also respond yourself in that role to scenes?
Yes,
Okay. During the union meeting, did you receive a phone call from someone,
yes, from the fire chief.
the fire chief? Is that correct?
Yes,
Is that your boss?
yes,
Okay. And did he, what information did he provide to you?
That's hearsay.
I'll ask another question, John. As a response of information that he provided to you, did you go to a certain location?
I did. He had asked me to go to 18 Barton Street.
Okay. And at the time that you were told, or he asked you to respond to 18 Martin Street, what was your understanding of why you were being asked to respond there?
My understanding is there was a domestic incident that he wanted me to go there and report back to him.
Okay. Do you know if you obtained that information from the fire chief or another source, if you know?
I don't recall.
Okay. But nonetheless, he's the one that asked you to go to that location.
That's correct.
Okay. And when you heard the address of 18 Barton Street, did you know just based on the address who lived at that location?
Yes,
Okay. And was that something that was relayed to you, or that's just something you knew based on the address?
I knew.
Okay. And who did you know to live there?
Cara Rintala and Anna Marie Cochran.
How did you know that they lived at, well, let me ask you more clearly. Did you know that they lived there in part because of your work with them?
Yes,
Okay. Can you tell us about your experience working with the defendant, Cara Rintala?
I worked with her when we were at AMR. And then after AMR, I went to the fire department. Knowing that she lived in town, I recruited her or asked her if she wanted to work part-time shifts as a paramedic in Granby.
Okay. And did she accept that offer?
Yes,
Okay. So you worked with her at both AMR and also the Granby Fire Department?
correct.
How many years prior to March of 2010 would you say you knew and worked with the defendant, Cara Rintala?
Probably 10 or 15 years, I'm not 100% sure.
During that time frame, how would you describe your relationship with her?
Cordial.
Was it simply coworkers, or would you spend time together socially outside of work?
We didn't do anything socially.
Okay.
We were co-workers and somewhat friends.
Got along with one another?
Yes,
What about Anna Marie? How long had you known her as of March 2010?
about the same amount of time.
And how did you know her?
Through working at AMR.
Hey there,
I
White
also
Rabbit.
recruited
Welcome.
her to come work part-time as a paramedic in Granby.
Okay. At any point, were you in a supervisory position over Cara or Anna Marie
Yes, when I was the ambulance coordinator
at Granby Fire
at
Department?
Granby Fire Department.
Okay. And As a result of that, were you aware of the defendant's level of certification,
Yes,
and what was she certified as?
certified as a paramedic.
Okay,
I also knew that she worked for another fire department.
okay. And did you have the opportunity, as a result of working with her and being her supervisor, to know what her physical fitness level was at that period of time?
Yes,
And what was that?
she was fit, could basically do her job very well.
Do you see Cara Rintala here in the courtroom?
I do.
Can you please point to where she is?
She's over there in the blue shirt.
During the record, reflect these identified as comment.
Well,
After you got the call to respond to the scene, are you able to tell us approximately how long it took you to get there?
From the station, it was probably about 4 minutes.
And did you know, before you got to the scene, if any other paramedics were also responding or were already there?
Yes,
What did you know?
Gene Oz was on duty as the paramedic for the evening. And there were also 2 EMTs on.
Okay. And were you aware that Gene was responding as well?
Yes,
Okay. Did he get there before or after you, if you remember?
before I did.
Okay. When you got to the scene, who was there?
It was Gary Poehler, police officer. At the time, Sergeant Mark Smith and Gene Oz.
Okay. Was there anyone else in the house?
Just Cara.
Okay, so just the 4 of them
Yes,
at that period of time? When you got to the scene, did you speak to anyone outside without getting into any content? Do you remember speaking to anyone outside of the residence?
I believe I spoke to Gary Poehler.
Okay. Did you enter the residence?
I did.
What door did you use?
hey,
The
Yamaha,
side door in between the house and the garage.
and this
Okay.
way up.
Now, when you entered the house, do you remember seeing anyone inside?
Yeah, Gene Oz was inside. Cara was
Hey,
inside.
Yamaha. Haven't seen you in a
Do
while.
you remember anyone
How
else?
are you?
I don't recall where Mark Smith was at that point in time.
Okay. And where did you see Gene and the defendant?
In the kitchen area.
Did you actually go into the kitchen area of the home?
Just stepped in it from the doorway.
Okay. At that point, were you able to make any observations of the defendant in the kitchen area?
I did.
What was that?
That she had paint on her clothing and also appeared to be some dried blood on the clothing as well.
Okay. In terms of her demeanor, what did you observe?
She seemed to be upset.
Was she making any statements that you were able to hear at that point in time?
That Anne was dead.
And do you know if she was directing that statement to you or to someone else, if you know?
She was just saying it in general.
Okay. How long would you estimate you were in the kitchen area?
Initially, maybe 5 minutes.
Okay. Where did you go next, or what did you do?
I went with Gary Poehler and went downstairs where Anne was
And what was your purpose of going towards the basement or
to
into the basement?
into the basement to make an observation of what condition Anne's body was in.
And why was that something that was important to you at that time?
Because I was told by Gary Poehler that she was dead.
Okay. And why did you go to the basement in your role as a paramedic responding to the scene?
So to confirm that she was in fact dead.
At the time that you did that, do you remember if you were aware whether or not Gene Oz had already gone to the basement?
At that time, I wasn't aware.
Okay. Were you aware at the time that you went to the basement as to whether or not you would be required to write any form of documentation about your response to the scene?
Yes, since Jean was with Cara in the kitchen, I was going to write up the patient care report.
Okay, can you tell us what that is?
So anytime you go to a call where there's a patient involved, you need to document a report
Okay, and what was
on
your,
what you found and what you did.
okay, was it your plan to fill that out that night?
Yes,
And did you do that?
yes.
Okay. And when you got to, the basement, can you tell us where specifically in the basement you
This
went?
guy looks as boring as he could be
I
a
went down the
drying
stairs
paint expert.
I know.
to the floor. From there, I don't recall how far I went in, but I went in enough so I could see Ann's full body.
Okay, onto the floor of the basement?
Yes,
Okay, were you able to see her full body from your vantage point?
yes.
Can you just tell us generally what the scene of that basement looked like? What did you take note of when you first got to the basement?
Ann was on her back. Her hands were up near her head, raised up off the floor. There was a significant amount of wet paint that was on the floor on top of her body as well.
Okay,
Not
It
not
was
super
also,
exciting.
her skin was purplish in color, like the fluids had settled.
Welcome back, Kim.
There was a little bit of blood around the corners of her mouth.
now you indicated that, you observed what you described, I believe, as wet paint,
Yes,
and how did you know it was wet?
it had a glossy look to it. Didn't appear that any of it had crusted over or dried.
Oh, she didn't even have to ask this one.
Number 6.
Cannot put it on
Are you
screen.
able to see that TV next to you?
Yes,
Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
yes,
What is it?
that's Ann lying on the floor with the wet paint and her hands raised up off the floor.
Does this photo accurately depict what you were
Right up
able
off
to
the
see
floor.
essentially from the bottom of the basement stairs?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm not saying they're
And
coached,
is
but they're
the
all
paint
saying
consistent
exactly
where
the
you
same
saw the
words.
paint when you arrived there?
yes,
Now, you also indicated that you were able to see some coloring on Anne's body. Can
Yes.
you just tell us what you observed and where on her body?
in her face and her arm area.
What did you see?
Dark purplish, bluish skin color.
And why was that something that you noted or that was important to you?
Well, that tells me the bluish color that she's not getting any oxygen whatsoever. I also noticed that her chest wasn't moving, so she was not breathing.
Hey,
And
Pixie.
it also appeared with all the color to the front that that's where the fluids had settled.
Can you describe what you mean by that?
So when a person's heart stops and they've been there long enough, all of the fluids
enough.
settle to the lowest point, which in this case, it was on the front of the body, but my assumption is that the body at one point was face down.
And you believe that based on?
As
on
Cara
the pool
testified.
or the-
On the pooling of the fluids and the rigor mortis.
Okay. What did you observe regarding rigor mortis?
That the hands were up off the floor by her head, as is depicted, and they were slightly off the floor.
What specifically was slightly off the floor?
The hands, the wrist, part of the forearm,
Are you able to estimate at all approximately how far off the floor those areas of her wrist, hand, and arm are?
it was a few inches. I didn't measure it.
Okay. Of what significance was that fact?
JB, you're an American. What's a
Right.
few?
I mean, like 4.
This last EMT said 6 to 8 inches above the floor. And I know men has a tendency. This is 5 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches, whatever the night is gonna bring. This is about 5 inches, 6 inches, 10 inches. But still, if you're looking at a dead body, I don't know, is this like 4 inches and this is 8 inches? There's some difference. And a couple
Yeah.
of inches, a couple is 2. And a few is about, yeah, that's the step up from 2.
Yeah,
So
like
somewhere,
between 2 and 4, I would say. Like,
yeah, like Danny says. So and from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8, that's quite a jump. I would say anything above a 2 is a few, because a 2 is a couple, but it just strikes me that the other one was very adamant that it was 6 to 8 inches above the floor. They have said all the same things, but now it's not as clear because again, 6 to 8 inches. That I don't know. I don't do American numbers, but there's a difference if they're raised like this above the floor or like this.
Mhm.
It's yeah, this way up. No. Yeah, exactly. I thought it's slightly more than 2, but you would say 5 inches if it's 5 inches
Mhm.
in my world. So, but let's see. He hit the wet paint. He hit the rigor mortis. So we're having all the hits.
To you.
That told me that she was in rigor mortis at that point.
Exactly. Several
Do
would be above
you,
5 because 5 and
remember
10 are numbers you
whether or
would
not
say.
you actually approached and touched Anne's body?
Sitting
That's
here
my
today,
body.
I don't recall whether or not I did.
Based on what you were able to observe visually, as you just described, did you make any determinations or decisions about Anne and her care?
Yes, with the lividity and rigor mortis, she was not going to be able to be resuscitated.
Okay, and so you did not attempt resuscitation
Did not.
efforts? Okay. And did you know that ultimately in the patient care report that you indicated you needed to fill out?
Yes,
Specifically speaking of the patient care report, do you remember when you filled that out?
it was at the scene.
Okay. Do you have the paperwork with you?
Yeah, I normally carried paperwork in my private vehicle.
After you were in the basement, did you go back upstairs?
Yes,
Okay, did you know if you remained in the house or went outside?
I remained in the house for a few minutes and then I went outside to write the report.
Okay, and did you do that outside of the house?
Yes, I actually did it on the hood of our cruiser.
Okay. Now, when you wrote that medical report, what sources of information were you using to put information into that report?
My observations of what I saw at the bottom of the stairs.
Okay. Did your medical report also include any statements that the defendant made?
No,
Okay.
I don't believe it did.
Exactly, Baki. Move on with it.
They're so nosy.
Yeah, but they're wondering, will this man die on the stand? I really hope he's not ill because he just looks like he's.
I just want to show you a document here, sir. Do you recognize this?
Yes, that would have been the report that I wrote.
And this is the one you filled out that we've been talking about?
Yes,
Okay. Just looking at this section here and some of the information that's located in that, I just want you to be able to read this to yourself first.
Lies, Farrell. Nothing but lies. She looks kind of like Amy Schumer, the
You had
prosecutor.
a chance to read that?
yes,
Okay. And in your medical report, did you indicate some information regarding the last time Anne was seen alive?
yeah, it was around 10 o'clock.
Let's
Can I
hear say.
just ask the next question? I believe the answer is yes. Please stand.
Okay, so, sure.
How would he know anything about what the last time she was seen alive was?
Yeah.
That would be hearsay. Then they have to bring the witness in who told him around 10 o'clock. Well, this fella on the stand is funnier than Amy Schumer. I believe that if they were allowed to bring in the paint drying expert, he would be funnier than Amy Schumer.
Kind
I
of.
can't remember any funny movies. If Chuck Schumer weren't her dad or uncle or whatever he is, she would never have been in Hollywood. It's all about yeah, I have a bad smelling kitten.
Okay.
That's her stand up, and yeah, and then she stole most
Yeah.
of it, but it's always about her little kitten. Yeah. I'm actually really bad at parallel parking, but that's because I always. Oh, now I have to figure out if I over or underestimate the distance. Moving on.
Everybody
Well,
hates me Schumer. That's funny.
probably someone with a name that rhymes with Carrie Keinstein, because he was connected to a lot of bigwigs in a party that rhymes with Democrats. So there was probably some business going on, as there always are with certain people. You can peddle influence for a career. Rip Lefty.
He has a dream, Lefty. Leave him be.
I am a great public speaker. You show up for almost every stream and annoy me, but you couldn't live without my beautiful Scandinavian accent
Uh-huh.
and my beautiful handling of the English language.
He handles it better than most.
Yeah, I can say car instead of car. Exactly, bark face. Lefty should just shut up. Well, David, text to speak, not going too well. David reading names, not so well. And sometimes when he's reading sentences, it seems like he just stops in the middle and just guess what the rest of the sentence is. But he's a smart guy, so yeah.
Oh my God.
He can beat you with a broom if you like. Well, most of it is just me screaming tirades.
Mr. Render, I think I asked you a few minutes ago if you remember whether or not you overheard the defendant making any statements, particularly in regards to the time she last saw Anna live. Do you remember hearing from her make any statements in that regard?
Yes, which I think I documented in my report as around 10 a.m.
Okay. And having looked at that report, does that refresh your memory about hearing that
It
statement?
does.
Okay. And she said that she last saw Anna live at 10 a.m. in the morning?
Yes,
Okay. And you documented that?
yes.
Oh, I can't pick on anyone for doing a Southern accent. I did a Southern accent in one trial, and I was immediately called a racist. So,
Oh, he was. Oh,
on
man.
behalf of me, I'm sorry to all the Southern people when I try to do my drawl. It's not racism; it's appreciation.
Oh my God.
That's the worst thing ever. The guy who called me a racist.
And
Would you make fun
a
of Asian
Southern
people?
accent is not racist. Like, come on.
Well, I have seen some documentaries from the
At some
Appalachian
point, you
Mountains. I
remember
don't know
going
if they're
into
subtle,
the
but
garage area at
they
the
could
house.
seem like a different species.
And do you remember why you went into the garage area?
The first time, Cara had requested her cell phone so that she could make some phone calls.
Okay.
So I retrieved her pocketbook and cell phone from the
And-
garage.
And so she asked for those to be retrieved,
Correct.
and you were willing to do that?
Yes,
And did you go out to retrieve those items?
I did.
What vehicle did you retrieve the items from? If you remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I thought
The
it might
White
have
Rabbit
been her
has a
truck. but
beautiful accent.
I'm
I
not
like a
100%
southern
positive.
accent.
Oh yeah, she does.
As to which part of the answer?
Just do everything after, I'm not really sure.
Okay, sustain.
Move to strike it.
She had to stop just for that.
Part of the answer, that.
It's
heard
yeah,
that.
it's in poor taste, not racist. It's a difference. There's a big difference.
Thank you. Did you go out to a vehicle in the garage?
Yes,
Was it parked inside the garage?
yes,
Okay. And did you retrieve a pocketbook and a cell phone?
I did.
And do you remember where in the vehicle those items were located?
It's the internet. I don't know why
I believe
people
they
are
were in
the
the
way they
front
are.
seat, front passenger seat.
Or did you
It's not
take
like
those items after you retrieved them?
I brought them
this
into the kitchen
accident
and
has
gave
nothing
them
to do with
Kara.
race.
And
It's just
do you
an accident.
remember, seeing Cara, the defendant, using that cell
We
phone
do have
Yes,
after you brought it?
darker
in?
complexion
Yes.
people in Denmark too with an accent.
Do you remember going back out to this same vehicle a second time?
yes.
And what was the reason for that?
They just like that word. They like to throw
I
it around.
needed to get
Yeah.
the diaper bag for their daughter, Brianna,
And why did you need to get that?
because Brianna was next door at the neighbors and they didn't have anything to change her in.
Do you remember who requested you to get the diaper bag?
I believe it was Kara.
And did you go out to do that?
I did.
Do you remember where in that vehicle you found the diaper bag?
That would be in the back seat.
And after you got the diaper bag, what did you do with that?
I brought it next door to the neighbor's house.
Sorry. She requested he got a diaper bag. To me, a request is kind of like a demand.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like she was bossing him around, saying, "Hey, get my phone, get my my wallet now. I request you give me my phone."
I know. They're
The
trying
other
to
EMTs
sound
said
terrible.
the other EMTs said that she asked if she could call her mom and Marie's mom.
Mhm.
That's a big difference from I request I get my phone so I can call my mom. If she was saying, "Give me my phone, I want to call my lawyer," that's a request. But asking for a phone, as the first one said,
Mhm.
I know it's just semantics, but it's a way to paint a defendant that's not fair, because we have another witness that said she was totally cooperating and she just wanted to call her parents and the victim parent. I would say, well, that's nice of her to phone them up and say, "Well, I'm sorry, but to be the one," because she could just have let the police call her and said, "Yeah, your daughter died."
Yeah. Absolutely.
But now it's a problem that she requested him to get the diaper bag, and the diaper bag in the bag is probably to say, well, the rags she threw out wasn't a part of cleaning her daughter. She could have let them be in the back seat instead of in the back of the car. Sorry,
No, you're absolutely right.
but I just hate the
Do you
phrasing.
remember, at some point, members of the state police arriving at the scene?
Yes,
And do you remember whether or not, your two trips out to the vehicle were before or after the state police arrived?
before.
Do you remember, when you went out to the vehicle on either occasion to get the defendant's pocketbook and cell phone, or to get the diaper bag, seeing any food within that vehicle?
Yes, there was a container of macaroni and cheese.
Where did you see that?
It was on the console in the middle.
On the console in the middle?
Yeah, in between the driver's seat and passenger seat.
Did you leave it there?
Yes,
Okay.
So
After
What-
the state police arrived on scene, did something change in terms of people being in the home?
yes. The first state trooper
I
that
know.
arrived requested that we did not go back in the house,
Okay, and did everyone abide by that?
as far as I know.
Okay. at that time, do you remember if you had re-entered the home or were you outside? If you know.
I believe I was outside.
Okay. And did you stay outside after that?
I did, after he had said everybody needed to be outside.
Okay.
Nothing further, Joanna.
I know. What did we?
And
Let's
you
hear-
indicated that you were very familiar with the defendant and Anna Marie, correct?
Correct.
Through your work.
Yes.
And I know you indicated before that you didn't necessarily spend time outside of work socially, but while you were at work, would you socialize?
Yes,
Would
on
you
occasion.
speak about each other's personal lives?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember, or did you come to learn from Cara why she left the Granby Fire Department? Or why Anne left the Granby
Hearsay.
Fire Department?
Judge, you're on us to whatever she may have learned from Ann.
My question was about Anne or Cara leaving Granby Fire Department.
No,
but
that's
from
not your
the
question.
mouth Of the defendant, Cara Rintala.
If you could just, because I wasn't clear later about that, so if you could just ask that question again.
Okay.
That's
Thank
clear.
you. Did you ever learn from the defendant, Cara, directly, why her or Anne left the Granby Fire Department?
The initial conversation was there were a lot of calls going on at her regular job in Ludlow, but also that they were having some problems that they needed to try to work out.
Okay. And do you remember the defendant making any specific statements to you as to what at least one of those problems may have been?
Yes, she had told me that Ann had opened a credit card in Kara's name and charged $25,000 on it.
What?
That
And
Oh.
what, did she indicate what her reaction was to?
What did she
find
pay
out that-
for?
She was upset, but she made the statement that she was going to let the divorce lawyers handle it.
What'd she buy? Now I'm curious.
Yeah, but I don't like this victim. She ran up 25,000 in debt in her wife's name, and 7,000 in debt in. Was she in drugs?
And a side piece's name, like
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's 32,000 bucks. She better have a new car.
I'm
It's
surprised. Do they have? I hope they have evidence of this 25 grand, because
yeah, but
that's-
again, how was her reaction? I'm gonna
But
let
I
the
think
divorce
that-
lawyers.
okay, yeah, but them saying that, like, I feel kind of puts the light on Cara once again. You know, like
Yeah, but
now she's
but the-
mad because yeah.
But that would have been before they separated, and they were separated for 3 months. Then I can't remember. It was 3 months. Then they were back together for 3 months, and then she unalived. So
Yeah.
time-wise, yeah, she could be a horrific gambler or whatever, but this is so far, so long before the murder. Correlation or causation. It's
Mhm.
always the things.
Sure.
If it was the day before I said, I just found out that stupid B word stole 25 from me. Yeah, then it's some kind of motive. But if you just figure out that, whoa, half a year before, and did she have a huge life insurance? She could get a payout to pay back the 25. Sorry.
I mean, they didn't mention it, so it's
Do
probably
you
not.
remember,
No, it's just out of the blue. They haven't mentioned it with anyone. Then why didn't they ask the detective if she had a life insurance?
Yeah.
Yeah, but how can you get a butt lift without your spouse noticing? Or
Yeah.
take a trip? They had a 2-year-old daughter.
I know.
when approximately that conversation occurred?
I don't.
Okay. But you know, it was prior to, or do you know if it was prior to Ann's death?
It was prior.
Yeah, because the divorce lawyers who were in the picture at least 3 months before the That's just to prejudice the jury against the defendant.
Yeah.
Second.
Oh,
Sir, is it fair to say that today's the first time you said anything about dried blood on Cara Rintala?
I don't believe it was the first day.
Okay, so let's start with your report. Can you tell me where in your report it says dried blood that you saw on Cara Rintala? Your statement?
just say, oh, I did a doo-doo. Well, she was getting a bit chubby, so maybe McDonald's.
I mean, I was gonna say like maybe it was just purchase after purchase after purchase, but that's a lot of stuff you'd have to buy.
Yeah, $32,000 worth of stuff. And she still had to finagle him to get $250 for a dog.
For a puppy, yeah.
Yeah. I just saw Lizzo's McDonald's menu today. Brian Shaw was eating it. 10
Fried one?
cheeseburgers and
Or just
90
one?
nuggets.
Jesus.
Oh, sorry, 95 nuggets, I believe. That's 8,700 calories.
Oof.
On Ann herself, I didn't mention dried in that statement.
And on Cara, you didn't mention dried blood either, did you?
I don't recall.
Take a look, sir.
Of course. You don't.
Oh, I bet her husband hates when she asks him, "Did you take out the trash?" Well. Could you show me where you took out the trash? And she just gives him the side eye.
Doesn't look like I said dried.
You didn't say dried in your statement you gave, and fair to say, sir, your statement you gave
That's the
March
prosecution's
30th, 2010, is it right?
Correct.
And it's fair to say your memory would have been fresher then than it is today, is that right?
Yes.
And sir, we talked a little bit about your report that you did in this case. You didn't mention anything about dried blood on either Cara Rintala or Ann Rintala in your report, did you, sir?
It's almost like someone told him to say those words.
It doesn't look like I did.
Oh,
No, sir, you never mentioned that?
It doesn't look like it.
Then, sir, you remember giving some testimony in February of 2013, where you were asked about what you saw regarding Cara Rintala. Is it fair to say you didn't say anything about dried blood then either, sir?
I don't recall if I did or not.
This is page 73, lines 14 to 16. Could you read the highlighted lines to yourself, please, sir?
do you think she looks at the jury every
Refresh
time
your
with a
memory,
little
sir, as to whether or not-
sly smile?
When you testified
Okay.
under oath in 2013, you never said anything about dried blood on Cara Rintala.
According to that, no.
Then, sir, if we can, sorry. Then, sir, if we can jump to January 13th of 2014. Remember,
Cindy, agree. There's a lot of details in patient care reports, but if you're listening, she's taking his report, then she's taking his previous 3 testaments, testimonies, and saying, "Why didn't you mention it there?" And she did this with the first 2 police officers and the first EMT, because all of them have changed their testimony. They are suddenly remembering certain things that really benefits the prosecution. I'm not saying they're coached, and I'm sure MG Law will say, just as me, the state would never try to pull a fast one in trial. They are always the bestest keepers of the law.
They are.
But this defense lawyers had defense lawyer have proven time and again that they have changed their statements. That's why it's important with the details. It's not as much what they said at the scene. It's just that they didn't say it in either of the 3 previous trials. But they need to have stuff like this in because they lost their paint timeline.
Yeah, they lost the paint timeline, so they got to start the rigor mortis is what they're doing now.
Yeah. And everyone
Focusing on it.
And everyone, if you join Dave's YouTube channel, you can go into the Discord, and there you can see a drawing of the. It's not the official drawing of how you do a rigor test, but it's close to. I can be an expert in upcoming trials because of my knowledge about rigor mortis.
Oh my God. Corner kissing, corner mouth kissing, rigor mortis test. Like, my gosh. This trial has it all. Look at that.
That's how you earn 7K in credit cards.
You earned 7K in credit cards from someone else.
Moving on. Moving on.
I love that picture because Old Line said it earlier. That person looks terrified of the kiss.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, Old Line, the moved as a unit, that's just not something everyone would say. It could be something you pick up on a fire station or in the police, but talking about the whole body because of rigor moved as a unit, it seems so coached. Yeah, we haven't had the armpit test in this one. I have to this one, and then this one. Sorry.
Say anything about dry blood when you testified on January 13th of 2014 on Cara Rintala.
I don't recall.
This is page 118, lines 6 through 8. Can you read the highlighted portion to yourself, please, sir?
And again, the little side eye to the prosecution. Every witness has, at some point when she's yelling at
I
them.
didn't mention it in those lines.
And you were under oath at that time. Is that fair to say, sir?
Yes,
Now, sir, do you also remember testifying in (2016), specifically September 15th of 2016, and not mentioning anything about dry blood when you were describing Cara and what she looked like that night?
I don't recall. If I
It's
do.
page 140, lines 2 through 7. Can you read those to yourself, please, sir?
Oh, man. Rosemary is just. Be gentle,
she's the
Rosemary.
bomb.
He
You didn't say anything
he
about
might pass away.
Oh. It just did a.
when you
That's
made
good.
your observations
Sorry,
Oh, it happened.
I didn't do it.
of Cara Rintala. You went downstairs and you stood on the bottom of the stairs. Is that where you were when you made the observations?
I was on the basement floor
The basement floor, right at the bottom of the stairs.
in that general vicinity.
Okay. And you don't have any memory of touching the body, is that right?
I don't.
Okay. And sir, it was from that vantage point that you determined that there was rigor, is that right?
Correct.
So standing at the bottom of the stairs, looking at the body, is that right?
Correct.
Do you also remember other observations that you made at that time of Cara Rintala?
I don't recall which ones you're referring to.
Okay.
Discoloration of the
That
skin,
question
you
I'm
said
trying to
that.
get.
Yeah.
You could see Cara Rintala's entire body from where you were standing, right?
Correct.
Had no trouble seeing any part of her body, right?
Correct.
Including her face, her legs, any part that you could see the entire body, is that right?
Correct.
And do you remember, sir, from that vantage point, when you first wrote your report, saying that there were no signs of trauma to Cara Rintala's body?
Correct. Referring to broken bones, major lacerations, major bleeding.
But you used the term no signs of trauma, right?
I did use that term.
Okay. And did you see bruising on her face?
I did.
And that wasn't trauma to you? Bruising on her face?
In my report, I was referring to major trauma such as broken bones, major cuts.
I love
Major
this
bleeding.
defense
Now, I'm
lawyer.
gonna ask her,
Mhm.
would you agree that bruising on the face is trauma?
In a technical term, it could be.
Well, it's your
No.
report, sir. In a technical term, bruising on the face is trauma, right? Someone has bruises on the face, there's some trauma, right?
It's a domestic call,
I
Yeah.
would assume there would
and
be.
she has
Okay,
proof.
and your report says no trauma,
Like that.
right?
In that report, and I was referring to the bones and major cuts.
I bet there's nothing in there that says I'm only referring to bruises
sir.
or bones and major cuts.
Yeah.
You told us on direct examination about some conversations that you said you had with Cara Rintala. Do you remember that testimony?
Yes,
And do you remember, I think it's on March 30th, 2010, giving a statement to the police department,
yes,
being interviewed?
yes,
And you reviewed that statement, is that fair to say?
yes,
And you initialed that statement, is that fair to say?
yes.
Okay. Now, sir, can you show me where in the statement, or do you have a memory in the statement, sir, of ever saying that Cara Rintala told you the last time she spoke to Ann was 10 a.m.?
I don't recall if I mentioned that in the statement. I know it was in my run report.
That's what I'm asking you, sir. I'm asking about your statement that you gave to the police. Is the 10 a.m. comment that you have in your report
Why wouldn't you mention that?
Mhm.
That's pretty
reference when you
important.
gave your long
Very
interview to the police the next day?
She's from Boston.
Boston.
I love how she makes every witness looks like a little schoolboy who forgot to make his homework. You
Yeah.
just read the cheat sheets and
Yeah, I don't
said-
see where I might have mentioned the exact time.
oh, you
Didn't
don't
mention
see
any
where you
time.
might have done it.
About Cara Rintala ever telling you that the last time she spoke to Anne Marie was 10 a.m. in your statement to the police. Is that fair to say, sir?
I don't see it in there, that's correct.
Well, you think you said it and then you write it down?
I'm not saying that. I'm
Okay.
saying it's
You didn't
not,
say it.
not there.
Okay. Now, sir,
She sure did.
you also talked to the prosecutor a little bit about conversations that you had with Cara Rintala prior to this evening, the night of March 29, 2010. Do you remember those conversations?
I do.
Okay. And something about, Ann had opened a credit card in Cara's name, and had charged $25,000.
Yes,
Okay. And Ann didn't say anything, I mean, Cara didn't say anything like, I'm gonna kill her, right?
not that I recall.
Well, that's not what you gave in the statement, right? You said I'm gonna let the divorce attorneys handle it, right?
Yes, and that's what I just testified to.
Okay. So there wasn't any comment like, I can't take it, I can't believe she did that. The comment by Cara Rintala was, I'm gonna let the divorce attorneys handle it, is that right?
The
That's
war.
what she had said to me.
Okay. Now, sir, you also talked to Ann Rintala before the divorce, right?
Correct,
Or while you were, before March 29, 2010, is that right?
correct.
And do you remember when you were interviewed on the 30th of March 2010, making the statement that Ann called me and was talking about the pending divorce and basically asked how she could stop the divorce?
Yes,
And that was sometime before she was killed on March 29th of 2010, is that right?
correct.
Okay. And do you remember giving her some advice about how she could stop the divorce? Objection.
advice to whom?
To Ann Rintala. It's in a statement.
Overruled.
You're really giving some advice to Ann Rintala about how she could stop the divorce.
I do.
What did you tell her to do?
Contact the courts.
The objection is hearsay, Your Honor.
Can I see the parties?
How can his advice be hearsay? MG, we need you.
MG.
It's yeah, it's a funny accent. And as a person with a tiny bit of an accent, I can. But it's a weird way to speak English with the sound. Yeah, it
I-
can't be. His advice to her can never be hearsay. Whatever she says back can be hearsay. So how the hell can they argue it's hearsay to explain? And so this is the guy who started all the trouble by saying, "Go to the courts; they can take care of it." By claiming there was spousal abuse. He must feel real good. Probably that's why he looks like death warmed over. Look at this guy.
He's gonna pass away any second.
Yeah, he's not gonna make it.
Not after Rosemary's done with him.
He has new orifices after she's done with him.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's good to be a little behind, or if you're lefty or son, way behind. But you can just fast forward. Oh, this is a long one.
No, sir. Let's leave that topic for a minute. I just have one further question from you. Do you remember being told before you even got to the scene that this was a domestic incident?
I don't recall if I was told that or not. I might have been.
This is paragraph 2 of the statement given on the 30th. Can you read paragraph 2 to yourself, please, sir? So does that refresh your memory?
Yep.
As to whether or not, when you spoke to the police on the 30th, you had a memory back then, and I know it's the 30th of March 2010, you had a memory back then that this went out as a domestic, is that right?
I believe so.
Well, that's what you wrote in your, that's what
Right.
your report, right?
I believe I heard that on the scanner, yes.
Okay.
See you, Yamaha. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
I have no further questions, thank you.
All right, sir, you step down.
She didn't go that hard, but she again
About 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
In other words, with victim's body. So can we call Dr. Richmond?
Oh, we're gonna do the what here.
If I could just clarify, is this court's inquiry or parties?
So I will let the parties inquire. I'll let the counsel start. Again, the first question I have is to what extent it's actually relying on information from Trooper McGarry and whether that information came directly.
For those of you who weren't here in the beginning of this stream, they will now do a short voir dire of a doctor, because this doctor might have relied heavily on testimony from a police officer who won't be testifying. He didn't testify in the third trial and won't be testifying again in this one. So the judge is afraid that she can't be cross-examined because everything she knows is something she's told by someone else. So you can't ask her questions about anything. Exactly, McBarkison. So that's why we're going to have a short voir dire, but fear not, dear viewer. I know everyone hates voir dire because they're going into where were you born, when did you lose your first teeth, what's the maiden name of the first girl you kissed, and stuff like that. They won't go into her entire background. It will just be, do you even have any first-hand knowledge about this case?
From him in terms of his own sort of observations, or as opposed to him conveying information.
Also, if you ask a person what he said to another person, he has direct knowledge of that. He was asked, what did you say to Anne-Marie could fix the problem? And he apparently said, go to the courts. It's just like, no, it's the opposite of Songbird in school. He fell behind because it didn't work. Yeah, and again, because they want to bring in that the defendant had complained about racking up 25,000 in credit card, but the prosecution really didn't want the statement that this guy advised the victim to go to the courts and claim spousal abuse into the trial. But the judge overruled. No, didn't he uphold the objection? So it didn't come in. But let's hear this funny little voir dire.
That hit.
Oh, it's Granny McDoctorson.
Oh my gosh.
Proceed, Your Honor.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Could you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Joanne Richmond, JoannRichmond.
And am I correct, Dr. Richmond, that you are the forensic pathologist who conducted the autopsy upon Anne-Marie Rintala back in 2010?
Yes, I am.
You're aware that you're here to testify before the jury about Anne-Marie's cause of death and manner of death, correct?
Yes,
As well as offer an opinion about the time frame in which you believe she may have died. Is that right? A time of death opinion?
yes.
Okay.
Sorry, just want to answer this again. If there's new people here, I can see that we just spiked a bit. Yes, the last witness said that Anne told him. Again, if he can't talk about what he told another one, why can't he say what Anne told him? That that Cara told him that Cara saw Anne-Marie at 10 a.m. But his colleague said that she told him between 2 and 4. So it seems a really big time gap. And he didn't mention it, as far as I remember, in any of the prior trials. He just wrote it in a report. He didn't even tell the police when he was interrogated by the police shortly after. But now he just read his report and 10 a.m. He could remember it clear as day because that fits really good with the prosecution's timeline. And again, there's of course no one is coached by the prosecution, but remember these few things: rigor mortis, wet paint. There was no skin on the paint, because everyone have said that, because again it strengthens the prosecution's timeline so they can fit in that Cara was the murderer. Oh, and Farrell, yeah, if you like our content, Jamie's giggles, my bad drawings, and my ramblings, please subscribe and like. I'm gonna sneeze.
I'd like to just ask you a couple of questions about that time of death opinion. in reaching the opinion that you are prepared to offer, did you rely upon statements or observations and descriptions of Ann's body that came from two police officers who physically rotated her body?
I thought it was one paramedic and a police officer.
Yes.
Okay, yes,
So part of the basis of your opinion is information from one or more police officers, correct?
yes,
And is the basis of your opinion also what you learned as far as observations or descriptions from one or more paramedics?
yes,
And you also reviewed some information in this case about Anne Marie's cell phone usage on March 29th, correct?
correct.
And based upon those sources of information, the police officers, the paramedics, the cell phone information, did you also review photos from the crime scene?
Yes,
And based upon those materials, are you comfortable to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as a forensic pathologist in offering a time of death opinion in this case?
yes.
Now, at some point during this investigation back in 2010 or so, do you recall any conversations that you had with a Massachusetts State Police Trooper, Jamie McGarry?
Yes.
What do you recall?
Oh, I remember he called me up. I'm not exactly sure when, but he asked me how soon a body would be ice cold and stiff as a board.
And that was a phone call?
Yes,
Okay. You're not quite sure when that phone call happened?
correct.
Okay.
I don't remember how it was in relation to the first call information or the autopsy. I'm not sure.
Is that the extent of what you remember him saying to you over the phone?
Yes,
Do you recall whether or not you met with him at a later date or learned any additional information from him?
at a later date, I remember meeting, I believe, with you and with him,
Okay.
and we discussed the case.
Do you remember any new or additional information that he specifically gave you at that point?
Not that I remember, no.
And to what extent does your opinion about the time of death in this case depend or hinge upon Trooper McGarry?
It doesn't.
That's all. Your Honor, if I'm understanding the scope of the hearing, I think I'm sitting down now.
Yes, you're sitting down now.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Richmond.
Hello?
I just have a couple of questions for you based on what you just told the prosecutor. You told the prosecutor that you didn't rely on Trooper McGarrian's information in determining time of death. Is that right?
Well, he never really gave me information that I remember. I just remember him asking me a question.
Do you remember testifying in 2016, September 19th, and being asked the question, now one of the descriptions of Ann's body that you relied upon in estimating her time of death came from Trooper McGarrian, correct? And your answer was yes. Remember that, ma'am?
No,
Approach the witness, Your Honor.
Just say, oh, I
Oh, sorry.
misspoke.
I apologize.
Right?
This is page 9, September
She's gonna
19th,
get you every time.
2016. Can you please read lines 10 through 13 to yourself, please, Doctor?
I bought these ones for our trip to Sweden, but I forgot to give the others.
Aw.
Little liquid pipes.
yes, I see that, but I don't remember that. I
Liquid?
don't remember
Licorice?
Yeah, that's-
showing me anything.
Licorice pipes.
But you agree that you testified that you relied on his opinion in determining the time of death back in 2016 when you testified, right?
So that's what it says.
You don't have any reason to doubt that, do you, Doctor?
No, I would have told the truth.
So
Now-
you're lying today.
Yeah.
Do you remember being asked on that same day,
Every
why is it that you felt comfortable relying on his, Trooper McGarrian's, description of how stiff Ann's body was? You remember your answer being, Jamie McGarrian is a trooper assigned to the district attorney's office. The trooper assigned to the DA's office is a very specialized group of state troopers. They go to every death scene, they go to every autopsy, so they see bodies in the beginning of the death scene, and they see bodies when I do my autopsy. I've worked with Trooper McGarry for many years, and he has been to many autopsies. And when they're there, they learn. I teach, they learn. Do you remember saying that?
It sounds like something I would say, yes.
Just review your testimony. This is lines 14 through 24.
But she just said he
on page
just
9,
asked
the
her one
2016
question.
testimony.
I love this defense lawyer.
I know.
This was a total lie she just told her.
Did you have a chance to review that, Doctor?
Yes. Mhm.
And is that in fact what you said in 2016 under oath
I assume so, yes.
about Trooper McGarry?
What he does, he comes to the autopsies and he's
Well,
experienced.
not what he does, why you relied on his description of what he saw that night. That's what you talked about, right?
Well, I don't remember what his description was that he saw
I'm
that.
not asking you if you remember, I'm asking you whether or not you,
You are. It's okay, so.
all right, sorry,
I think
Judge.
you could just sort of slow down a little bit.
Sure.
It's not helpful for me.
Let me clarify. I'm not asking whether or not you remember what Trooper McGarry's description was. I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you whether or not when you testified in 2016, you said that you felt comfortable relying on him and his description of how stiff Ian's body was for all of these reasons that you listed about him being in the CPAC unit, going to autopsies. Did you say that in 2016?
That he goes to all the autopsies, yes, and he's very experienced.
No,
I don't remember him telling me how stiff Anne's body was.
It's not what I'm asking. you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And maybe it's a bad question, so let me try again. You were asked the question, why is it that you felt comfortable relying on his description of how stiff Anne's body was? You see that question right here?
Yes,
And your answer is all of this stuff about the DA's office and Trooper McGarry and going to autopsies, right?
Yes.
Okay.
no, she didn't answer the question. She said she didn't rely on his testimony because
And
he only asked her one question.
Mm-hmm.
you were asked further why you were relying on Trooper McGarry's estimate or description of the stiffness of the body. You were asked the question, have you specifically engaged in any sort of informal teaching with Trooper McGarry at the time he's attended autopsies of yours? And your answer was yes. Do you remember testifying to that?
I know, but I know that that's true.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's why you were relying on Trooper McGarry's, you don't remember what it was, but that's why you felt comfortable relying on his description, right?
If he had described it to me, I would rely on it, yes.
Okay. And then,
Yeah, there's a high production value in this trial. He's gonna make movies next. But so now we know that she just lied.
I just have a minute, Rob. I think there's only 2 more that I have.
It's so ridiculous.
Now we know she lied. He only asked me one question. No, you relied on his testimony.
Yeah.
Sometimes
You remember being, well, you never actually went to the crime scene, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so you said when you were speaking to ADA Dagny that you got a call from Trooper McGarry, is that right?
Sometime either before or during or after the autopsy, yeah. I'm not exactly sure when, but it was
Well, do
somewhere.
you remember testifying that it was that night that you got a call from Trooper McGarry?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay. Do you remember but you do remember Trooper McGarry asking you a question about how long it would take a body to develop lividity based on the fact that the body was cold or stiff, right?
No, he didn't ask me about lividity. He never talked about lividity.
Time of death.
He asked me how soon or if a body could become cold as ice and stiff as a board, how soon that would be.
And cold as ice and stiff as a board. You got that description from Trooper McGarry, right?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
And based on his question and that description, you gave him a range of when you believed, well, you gave a range of a time of death, not an exact time, but a range, is that right?
His question was such that I gave him the response for a fully rigored body, cold, ice cold, and stiff. It would be 6 to 8 hours.
And
But-
you've made that determination of 6 to 8 hours based on Trooper McGarion's description of ice cold and stiff, is that right?
No, the 6 to 8 hours comes from my training and experience.
But you were answering the question about 6 to 8 hours, right? Or about the cold and stiff, right?
He asked me how soon would a body become cold as ice and stiff as a board.
Okay. And you answered 6 to 8 hours, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Now,
that's for every case across the board,
Yeah.
ma'am.
She never saw the body at the crime scene. She didn't know in which environment the body was. They found the body in the close to another body. That's some transfer of body heat right there. And what is cold as ice? You as cold as ice. What's cold as ice? Because it can be cold to the touch, and the second the heart starts pumping, you lose the body temperature. But is it 35 degrees Celsius, a normal body at 37.5 degrees Celsius? Is it 25 degrees Celsius?
Mhm.
Or is it as cold as ice, which is 0 degrees Celsius?
Exactly. What is cold as ice to you compared to me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference.
It's you can't determine something. And again, she never touched the body. She never saw the scene. And because he's a good guy and she knew him, she just trusted him, and she could mentally feel it would be 6 to 8 hours. Because
6
why?
to 8.
Yeah, but I don't know how you work Fahrenheit. You add something, subtract something, and throw it around in an office for a week, and then you know exactly how many Fahrenheit it is. I don't know it. It's yeah. Is it hard ice? Is it this lady is just as bad as all the other people. They just yeah, it was in full rigor. How can you tell you didn't touch the body at the scene? You weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
A guy said it was in full rigor. It's like believing Sunbird in anything he says. I'm sorry. Exactly, Fedorowski. We have to teach the Yanks.
you just said you didn't recall getting a call from Trooper McGarion while he was at the crime scene. This is January 13th, 2014, lines 7 through 9. Do you remember testifying in 2014 that you received a call from the scene and that
Not
you
to
talked
be-
directly to Trooper McGarion?
Be nasty
No,
to anyone,
I don't.
but she
Can you
looks kind of
review
like
lines 6
EU,
through
just
9 for
older.
yourself?
Has kind of the same face as EU. In a good way. No, don't take it the wrong way. I know she looks kind of like she and the previous
Okay, my
guy met
memory at
death
that time
years ago,
was-
but they have
was
the
Trooper
same
McGarien, yes.
Okay.
face structure.
And your memory would have been fresher in 2014 than it is today in 2023. Would you agree with that, Doctor?
Yes.
I have one more. Your Honor.
Not in a bad way, Lofty. I think she's a pretty old lady. I just think she has a shitty personality. I'm sorry. I don't think this lady is ugly. I have to say.
And one of the things you told the prosecutor
funny.
initially is that you were relying on a
Yeah,
report
Farrell's
of
gonna
how
clip that, so
Ann
that's what
Rintala's
I'm
body
saying.
was rolled
Oh, dear.
by
Oh,
a paramedic
sort of
and a police officer, is that
don't
right?
start drama. It's gonna see it anyway.
Yes.
Drama,
And you got that
drama,
information
drama.
from Trooper McGarry, is that right?
No,
You did?
no,
Who'd you get that from?
from reading their reports.
Well,
Yeah, who
you
made the
didn't read
report?
reports that night on the 29th, right?
No, but I didn't determine a time of death on the 29th either.
When did you determine the time of death?
Sometime later,
When?
after the entire autopsy and all the information was known.
So if the autopsy happened,
Your Honor, may I interject? Are we-
Sorry. I think EU has a cute face. It might be slightly more oval. I think this looks like a sweet lady. I said like she looked like an older EU. I think EU has a nice face. Now, oh, he's simping for EU. He's trying to get in her pants. You can't get in non-existent pants. Jamie,
love-
you,
love
Jamie, you run the show.
This board here.
I think this line of questioning is
I
important.
thought we were focusing on the Gary.
No, I think it's still relevant. I think the question here is whether Dr. Richmond, to what extent she relied on Trooper Megarian's representations. And so this goes to whether she had formed an opinion based on the conversation she had with Megarian as opposed to that same evening. Her repeating reports of the other first responders. So that's what I'm hearing. I think that is still relevant. I don't want to go much beyond that, and I don't want this to go on much longer, but it is relevant. So go ahead, Attorney Spicchio.
Thank you, Your Honor. And you said you determined the cause of death
Oh,
sometime after the
flip it.
autopsy, is that right?
The cause of death, yes.
Let it
You
die.
determined the time of
Let it
death
all die.
sometime after the autopsy, is that right?
Yes, it would be afterwards.
Okay, and as you sit here today, do you know how far after the autopsy? Was it a month, a day,
I
a year?
just think she
I have no idea.
looks kind of
I
cute.
don't remember.
Okay. And you said something to the prosecutor about relying on reports. Do you remember that testimony?
Well, which reports?
Well,
But when do water freeze? In our system, it freezes at 0 degrees. And
do you
you are
remember testifying that
it's eggplant degrees.
you never looked at the first responders' reports until 1 week
No, no.
prior to the first trial?
I don't remember that, but I don't know for sure.
What?
That's my minute, Your Honor.
She didn't look at the report till 1 week before the first trial. The first trial was 3 years after the lady died. Did I hear that?
That's what I heard.
What?
Can you give me that second?
Wow. I mean,
Just 1 second, Judge.
But
was
she didn't
ridiculous.
rely on the testimony, only the reports, which are the testimony of the officers.
155, thank you. I'm going to direct your attention to file 1, page 155. PSA, oh, you don't remember this, let me refresh your memory. This is lines 1 through 9 on page 155. Can you read lines 1 through 9 to yourself on page 155 of trial
If she didn't even,
1?
she weren't even the medical examiner at the time of the death. What?
huh?
She has absolutely no knowledge. She just read a report. What the?
Ma'am.
MG, what am I missing? How could, what?
Do you have a chance to read that, Doctor?
Yes.
And does that refresh your memory as to whether or not when you were sorry, can I take
Oh,
this?
yes, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you,
Yeah.
sorry. I didn't mean to take it out of your hands without asking. When you were asked the question, and what I'm trying to get to is that Mr. Gagney made some reference to reports by paramedics and other first responders, and my question to you is, at some point, did you read them or have them? And your answer, yes, I have them. Do you know when And your answer, I think it was last week.
I'm sorry, which trial was this?
This is trial 1, March 1st, 2013, page 155, lines 1 through 7. Did you say that I think it was last week?
I believe so.
And that was a week before March 1st, 2013, right?
I don't remember the date.
Well, if I told you trial 1 was March 1st, 2000, or your first testimony was March 1st, 2013, it would have been a week before that, is that right?
I guess so.
And you determined time of death well in advance of a week before trial in 2013, is that fair to say, ma'am?
Yes.
I don't have anything further, Judge.
Let's see which trans, we can't find that.
155.
Our pages don't seem to match up.
So
I'm sorry.
she's just an expert. She has nothing to do with the case. She never saw the dead body. She just read a report and summarized the report.
It's trial 1, I think it's day 8.
Day 8,
Day
but the
8.
date is March 1st, 2013.
So I think it's day 8 and it's page 155. That might be the problem. Moment or day, yeah, March 1st. March 1st.
Is it?
Yes, we're just,
We're just trying to figure out.
What?
Some more, please.
This is kind of confusing.
I don't have anything further, I thank you.
I have any brother.
I mean,
If I could have a moment, Your Honor, we're just trying to look at the transfer page. About some testimony you may have given back in 2013,
Okay.
and was your answer you do not recall that testimony?
Which part?
About when you may have been given?
No, she didn't do an autopsy. She only read the
My
report.
understanding is that you gave me the reports a week before the trial, but we had discussed them previously to that.
So you were privy to the information in the reports?
But I hadn't read the reports
Okay.
until a week before the trial.
Okay. And that was 10 years ago or so now?
I guess so, yes.
All right, thank you.
what does the state have going on?
I
Oh
forgot
my
one point. Dr. Richmond, you were asked some questions about a question that Trooper McGarrian asked you over the phone, correct?
Yes.
And was that in reference to a body, some hypothetical body?
The question sounded hypothetical.
Did he, for example, tell you, hi, Dr. Richmond, I'm in Granby right now, I'm at a scene, this is what I've seen, this is what I've felt, what's your opinion in this case?
No, he didn't say that. That wasn't his question.
Thank you.
So he's not even asking about the dead body. I'm so confused about this lady now. She didn't do the autopsy. She didn't what?
Mayor, I just had one question.
What did she even do then?
Do you remember in 2013 being asked the question, and prior to that, you had not, this is when you said you had just seen them, you just got the reports last week, and prior to that, you had not seen them to your knowledge. And your answer is, to my knowledge, I didn't see the actual reports. And the next question was, and you had the information contained in those reports relayed to you from someone else prior to actually seeing them. And your answer, yes, descriptions of what they saw at the scene. And who gave you those, and who in those descriptions came from Trooper McGarrian? And your answer is yes, right?
I'd like to see
Oh,
that
sorry.
again.
This is page 155,
She
Lines
never got any
7
information from
through
him.
16.
Again, she's lying. No, because that would just be, yeah, I can tell you everything, but if it's not in the report, it's not.
Doctor, does that refresh your memory as to whether or not you testified in 2013 that the
Yes,
descriptions of what other people saw at the scene, because you didn't have reports, were relayed to you by Trooper McGarrian? Is that right?
Yes.
Or have anything further, Judge, thank you.
And again, she has lied all the way through this voir dire.
Hey, doctor, still have you.
I'm sorry.
She said she never
Yes,
talked
just-
to
just on that point,
Trooper
Dr.
McGarren about this.
I'm
And
sorry, you look like you're about to say
I
something.
am.
May I, Your Honor, just for the sake of,
Go ahead.
We had many meetings, if you recall, and we discussed these things prior to everything. And McGarren was there, I believe you were there too. We discussed the information, but I didn't see the reports.
okay.
So you
But
didn't have any
did
knowledge.
see
You
the
have
reports
McGarren
before testifying
telling you
in
about it.
2013.
Correct, I saw them about a week before.
And you reviewed them again before the next trial, correct?
Yes,
You reviewed them again before the next trial,
yes,
and you've reviewed them again for your testimony in this case, correct?
yes.
Okay.
She lied when she said she never had any information about this case from Trooper McGarren because she just testified. She got all the information before reading the reports from Trooper McGarren. I'm dumbfounded by this. She's a medical expert.
What
Didn't
was
see the body.
What was her testimony that they wanted? Was it just the time of death? Was she the one that said rigor mortis 6 to 8 hours? Was that all they?
Yeah. On the description he gave on the phone in a hypothetical question, it would be 6 to 8 hours. What?
Thank you, Your Honor. So the question before the court is whether or not in this trial in 2023, Dr. Joanne Richmond can testify as to a time of death opinion that is based upon information other than what solely provided by Trooper McGarren and whether the defense can cross-examine her effectively. She's testified unequivocally that her opinion, first of all, she has a very vague memory as far as specific details being provided to her by Trooper McGarren. She was asked a hypothetical question at some point over the phone by him, which was not in reference to Cara Rintala, but a body regarding temperature and rigidity. She has reviewed, she has read, and relied upon.
I'm
You've
sorry,
got-
no.
No, you've got to be.
She wasn't asked about temperature. She was asked about how it felt. Again, she had no knowledge of the actual temperature. It felt cold as ice, but that's a subjective.
And also, he just said she was asked a vague question, like not this particular situation.
Yeah, and again, and he said, relying on the temperature, no one took the body's temperature and
Yeah,
said,
no.
well, this body is 58 degrees. How long would, in normal circumstances, would it have been dead? It was cold as ice, and that's subjective. You can't use that as any guideline, and it's stiff as a board.
Yeah, because when you say
Well-
ice cold to me, it makes me think she was in a freezer.
Yeah,
So it's your perception of it too. Like,
yeah, because what's cold as ice to you? Men and women feel temperatures differently.
Yeah.
And
you
And-
better believe that what's cold to me is probably death to someone else because I don't get cold very often. So my sense of temperature is way different than someone else's.
yeah, and this is my big problem with a subjective testimony, a subjective question about an unspecific temperature. She's gonna make a determination. It's 6 to 8 hours since she died. Yeah, and that again, a man and a woman feels things differently.
Yeah.
And again, you can touch something and think, "Oh my God, this is really cool," but maybe you have been touching something that was hot before. Maybe you have been touching EU, who is hot, before. I have to try and save it.
Just don't. Oh my God, you're funny.
Exactly. He was stiff as she was stiff and ice coke, maybe ice cold even. And she just said, well, then it's exactly 6 to 8 hours. How would you determine that? It's like me determine how my next cake will be by just looking at the ingredients and said, well, I have flour, I have eggs, I have yeast. It's going to be a great cake. Especially with, yeah, I know someone like her Brazilian dancing. Exactly. You and MG's wife would have totally different opinions about how cold something is.
I'll say 73. That's too hot for me.
Yeah, but let's see. I don't like this Peter Jensen lawyer.
The statements
No.
of the paramedics, the statements of the police officers, and that is the foundation for her opinion. We are, as I said before, we are not asking her to, she cannot testify to this jury as to any specifics that Trooper McGarry may have done at the scene because she doesn't recall him providing any of that information.
Is Trooper McGarry dead?
At any point. So this is not a risk of the doctor saying something that the defense is hamstrung in their efforts to cross-examine her. In fact, as this afternoon's preview has shown, if the defense wishes to open the door to cross-examining her about what she was told or not told by Trooper McGarry, or what she may or may not have said at a prior proceeding, that's certainly a strategic choice they can make if they choose to open that door, but we're not going to be the ones opening it. And they can cross-examine Dr. Richmond at great length if they choose to on Trooper McGarry, but we're not making Trooper McGarry an issue in this case, and her opinion has an independent and sufficient and admissible basis in the evidence in this case. It's based upon the testimony, the information that has been described by 4 witnesses who have appeared live, who were cross-examined by Attorney Scapiccio, and therefore there is no lack of confrontation or
am I right?
to cross-examine anybody with respect to her opinion. So I would suggest that she should be allowed to testify and should be allowed to explain the basis for her opinion.
But it's what her opinion is based on touch.
The problem with Dr. Richmond's testimony is that she relied on determining time of death in conversations that she had with Trooper McGarry. And Trooper McGarry isn't going to be a witness here. We don't know what Trooper McGarry said to her. We can't surmise what Trooper McGarry. What if he said something like, the whole body was blue, and she was standing straight up? We don't know what he said to her. And we have no ability to confront and cross-examine that judge because they're not going to call Trooper McGarry. And so for us to be in a position where they're saying essentially, we can open that door, we shouldn't be put in a position to open the door because the first thing that this court has to do is determine whether or not her opinion that's based only on Trooper McGarry's description is reliable. And if Trooper McGarry's not going to testify and she can't talk about his opinion, then where's the reliability of anything she's going to say, Judge?
Yeah.
We don't have the ability to confront and cross-examine. We don't even know if what Trooper McGarry told her about what other people said was accurate. What if he said something different than what Oz said? What if he said something different than what Polar said? We don't know that because we don't know what those conversations are, and we're not going to have the ability to cross-examine McGarry on it, Judge. And that's the problem. That's the real problem with it. But the additional problem is if you take away McGarry and all you have left is these reports that she reviewed a week before the 2013 trial, where she had already made her determination of time of death, then her opinion is not reliable. Not in this trial and not in any other. Not without offending Cara Rintala's Sixth Amendment right to confront and cross-examine the basis of that opinion. Because that's the whole purpose of cross-examining an expert, to be able to get at the basis of why they decided what they did and what caused them to make that determination. And we can't get there with this witness without McGarry.
Yes, Your Honor, there's not a scrap of evidence to support these speculations that Trooper McGarry said something off the reservation. He was cross-examined extensively twice by Attorney Hoos. I believe you have those transcripts from previous trials. So he may have said she had 3 legs. It just There's no evidence for that. And she can be cross-examined about what she reviewed, what she read, and what she's relying upon, which is the 4 first responders.
So, what I haven't heard from either side, is that Trooper Megarian ever examined his body, ever touched the body just to discern its temperature, to never check the body, to see how rigid it was in various parts, none of that. So, what I'm hearing is that he was this go-between between the first responders who actually did make observations of the body itself, the observations that would go to this expert's opinion about time of death. So I think the motion is really is styled as, and I don't have it before me, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's a motion to preclude Dr. Richmond from relying upon information from Jamie Megarian or worse to those effect. So does anyone have the motion?
I think Attorney Wood said that.
So, defendant's motion to preclude reference to observation of the decedent's purported, purportedly made, by Trooper Jamie Megarian.
Okay, so that motion is allowed.
We agree with that.
That motion is allowed. So, but that doesn't mean that she can't testify. It again means that she can't make any reference to Megarian. And it seems to me that you can cross-examine her pretty effectively based on her testimony that she was relying on the observations of first responders who all wrote reports, and that she didn't read any of those reports until years after she made her original determination. And that, I think, comes in without opening the door to anything that Arian did. So,
I'm sorry, I shouldn't say.
it's okay. Why? Are you gonna say something?
No, I mean, I was always taught when a judge addresses you, you have to stand. That's the way I was taught.
Oh, okay. I don't mean to throw people off. I'm trying to be magnanimous, but I think I'm making it more difficult.
I know.
So again, I'm allowing your motion. Dr. Richmond can make no reference to Trooper Megarian.
Thank you,
It
Paige.
seems like there was sort of a conversation where he presented a hypothetical, and if you believe that hypothetical was something that influenced your thinking early on, and you want to bring that to the jury's attention, you can do that.
But does that open the door, Judge?
It opens the door to that, so it's pretty limited. It doesn't mean that, I don't, and just so the counsel is clear, the first time, just because the defense mentions that the name Jamie Megarian, it doesn't mean that all this other stuff comes in. So we'll just have to see how it goes. But what I'm hearing is that Dr. Richmond, for starters, doesn't have all that
Yeah.
sort of memory.
Why doesn't
Whatever
they
she
mention
knows,
this?
but
She didn't read the reports till 3 years after.
what she's testifying today is going to be based on evidence that's been admitted, which is the testimony of the first responders. So you can ask her, when was the first time you read those, they all wrote reports. When did you read those reports for the first time? And in relation to when you initially formed this opinion.
So I understand what the court's saying, and I appreciate the guidance in terms of what opens the door and what doesn't. What I'm asking judges, are you making a finding that Cara Rintala's Sixth Amendment right to confront and cross-examine is not impeded by the inability to question this witness about Trooper Megarian's observations without opening the door to Trooper Megarian's conversations with this witness?
Well, again, it's
It's-
entirely up to you.
it's
Whenever you
related
witness,
through the
No, I'm not
state
saying what I
and
can.
the
I think
trooper,
it was a bad question.
what's in the reports. And then she read the report a week before the trial, where she must have made her determination beforehand.
with respect to her testimony.
And I like she brings up the Sixth
where any
Amendment
part of it
because
relies
this
on
judge is
restrictions
afraid
on
to have
hearing.
another
Before
trial
making that determination.
In
overturned.
these circumstances, yes.
There's no objection to that. I just want to make that clear for the record.
I guess my finding is that, I do not find that the absence of Trooper Megarian as a witness prior to, or even later, if called by the Commonwealth, the absence of his testimony does not prevent the defendant from cross-examining this witness in a meaningful way. Those would be my points.
Understood, there's just no objection.
All right, okay, so let's.
Exactly. If I'm going to cross-examine her, I'm going to talk her.
I would personally prefer to start in the, I'm only barely gonna get through her name and background at this point, Your Honor, but if you want me to, I can.
I'm sorry, yesterday we were kind of in reverse role, so I'll leave it to you. It's almost 4 o'clock.
So I have her,
It's
I
not-
have her here till about 12:30 tomorrow, in order to catch a flight.
Okay.
I'm optimistic that with Attorney Scapiccia's lightning fast cross-examinations, that may suffice. But if you prefer, we go till 4:30.
It's just that I told the jury that I guess if I'd known, I think.
But yes, the first thing I will cross-examine her.
Okay,
Did
but
you have
I'll
any,
take the heat for that. It's not a big deal. If the parties
scientific,
would prefer just to get
or
going
was it just
fresh in the morning,
subjective
regroup
observations
after
about the
this.
body? How did you reach your determination?
earlier.
I don't want to regret
That would be my first question.
spoiling this time we may have if tomorrow. I can introduce her today, get into her background, some of her training education.
That was my
Leave
thought
it at
was,
that.
I think you both need some time to sort of digest what happened here and maybe, I need some additional time to think about the parameters that I have announced. So if we can just put her on the stand and maybe get through that sort of those foundational questions and then break for the test.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Exactly. We can bump it up when it's just talking about her background.
Yeah, thank you. The Commonwealth calls Dr. Joanne Richmond.
But it could be interesting to see a witness list because they had all the people who were at the scene. Now they have the forensic. Bless you. The forensic person.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence which you shall give to the court and jury
Maybe
will be
the
the
medical
truth, the
examiner.
whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or do you so
How much more do they need? Oh, we need the technical with the blood in the basement. I think they're gonna stop in about 25 minutes.
Good afternoon.
Sounds like he wants to get
Good
on
afternoon. Maybe I do need the water. Good afternoon.
If I could please ask you to introduce yourself to the jury and spell your first and last name for us.
My name's Joanne Richmond. Joanne is Joann. Last name is Richmond, Richmond.
Where do you currently live?
Florida.
Flew up yesterday?
Yes,
And am I correct that you are a retired forensic pathologist?
correct.
What year did you retire from that field?
2011,
And prior to that, where was the last place that you worked?
Massachusetts.
And in which office or department?
The regional office, which would be the Western Regional Office.
DM me a
Yes,
link and I'll
The
put it
regional
in
office
chat.
of what larger office?
Of the Massachusetts Medical Examiner's Office.
And how long did you work as a forensic pathologist at the Massachusetts Medical Examiner's Office?
About 7 years. Oh,
Uh,
wait a minute, you said Massachusetts?
In Massachusetts, yes.
No, Massachusetts would be longer. I was thinking Chicago, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Massachusetts was from 1988 until 2011.
Okay. And prior to 1988, had you worked at a different medical examiner's office?
Yes,
Where
23
was that?
years.
the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office in Chicago.
Was that where you spent 7 years or so?
Yes.
Doctor, what I'd like to do is take a step back and talk a little bit about the education, training, and experience that led you into that career in forensic pathology. Starting first with your college education, if you could describe that to the jury, please.
I went to Rosary College in River Forest, Illinois. I graduated in 1969 with a Bachelor of Arts degree. After that, I went to Scripps Loyola Medical School in Maywood, Illinois, and received my MD degree in 1973. After that, I did 1 year of rotating internship. And then after that, I did 1 year of one year of residency training in the field of neurology, which is the study of diseases of the brain and the nervous system.
But
And I
none
did
of
that
this
1 year of training
freaking
at Providence
matters
Hospital,
because
which
she
is right
didn't
next door to
actually
the
look at the
Loyola
body.
Medical Center.
No,
Did
but
you have any residencies
she's the one
or similar
that's gonna
experience
tell
in
you
anatomical
everything with it.
pathology?
Well, after the 1 year of neurology,
certainty.
I went back to the medical center and did 5 years of training in the field of pathology, which is the study of disease. Those 5 years, the first 2 are anatomic pathology, where you utilize the autopsy and the microscope. Then there's 2 years of clinical pathology.
If
You study
you
the
people need
laboratory
something to watch
analysis of
later,
blood
Selbert
urine.
will be going live
And
with
then I
the
did a
beautiful
5th year
EU.
of fellowship in
I have to
anatomic
try and pull it
pathology.
back. I didn't
And
mean
you
it
also
in
have
any bad
training
way,
or
but
certification
I know
in
you
forensic
didn't.
pathology.
Right,
Chat
after that
hates
5th
me.
year at the Loyola Medical Center, then I went to the Cook
They're
County
just
Medical
making fun.
Examiner's Office to do a year's fellowship of forensic
it's
pathology.
hatred.
We've already discussed what anatomic pathology consists of and clinical pathology primarily work in a lab, correct?
Correct.
So what distinguishes forensic pathology from those other two? How is that different?
Well, forensic pathology uses both. You do use the autopsy, you look at tissues under the microscope, and you do laboratory on blood and urine and other bodily fluids. But now you're doing autopsies on homicides, suicides, accidents. Previously, the first 5 years, all the autopsies would have been natural deaths in the hospital. But in forensic pathology, now you're doing the cases that are violent or criminal in nature.
Now, in the fields of anatomic pathology, clinical pathology, and forensic pathology, is there something known as being board certified?
Correct.
What does board certified mean?
Well, it means that you've gone through the appropriate training, the number of years that are needed,
Exactly.
and then you've passed the examination.
Aussie
Did you
men,
obtain board
that's a
certification
different
in all
story.
3 fields?
Oh, wait, though.
Something that you won't count at the bar exam,
What?
you take it once, then you're good to go, or do you have
Yes.
to, you don't need to re-up?
Those
every couple of years?
Hemsworths.
Well, you have continuing
you.
medical education for you,
Yeah,
but you don't have to.
they
take
have
the
some
test.
good genes and
So,
a lot of
Really?
testosterone
On how,
injections.
You did some time, or you spent some time in Cook County.
Yes.
Cook County.
Of course,
Medical
he's
Examiner's
laughing in the
Office,
back of the
Yes.
room
And,
because he got away
Please
with it.
tell the jury what you did during your time there.
Well, the first year, of course, I was in training. That was my fellowship. And the nice thing about Cook County is that all of the deaths that need to be examined are taken to one location. We had a large autopsy facility, and there would be 5 forensic pathologists doing cases every day. So, and the deputy chief medical examiner was in charge of
The Invisible Man was made
so
by
that he would train
C-Sweat.
us to do homicides, suicides, and accidents, what we had
I'm
to look
not that
for,
good.
how we did the exams, things like that.
So what was your actual title or position when you started in Cook County?
I can't remember what the title was.
What were your day-to-day duties?
Well, I was a student fellowship, so I was in training, but I was working along with all the other doctors. So I was on the same case rotation for autopsies. Only 5 pathologists did autopsies each day, and there was a rotation.
Now, did you stay there beyond the time of your fellowship?
Yes, I did.
So once your fellowship was over, were you an assistant medical examiner or forensic pathologist there?
Yes, I was. I went on full-time, correct.
And could you give us some sense of what your caseload was like during your 7 years in Cook County?
Well, because all of the deaths come into one location, the caseload would be, there would be a lot of cases every day, a lot of deaths that we had to examine. when I calculated over the years, it was about 400 autopsies per year for the 7 years.
And is that just autopsies that you performed or that the entire office performed?
Oh, no, those are what I performed.
Okay, so about 400 per year.
Correct.
Now, on any given day, what's the low end or the upper range of how many autopsies you might perform, depending upon their complexity?
Well, it would depend on the deputy chief or the on-call doctor would assign the cases to you. And he tried to make it equivalent among all the 5 doctors. But you would start out with a homicide, you might do a motor vehicle, and then other accidental deaths, and then maybe a natural. So it's probably about 4 or 5 a day.
Cameraman just fell over.
Now, also, while you were out in Cook County during the 1980s, did you have the opportunity to do any sort of teaching or instructing, either on the job or outside the job?
There was a time near the end where I was teaching
Yeah, I don't think you ever did that one.
the medical examiners. They're
No.
lay investigators because they would go to the scenes in Cook County, and they needed training. So I was part of the group that trained them.
Yeah, but you made it better.
So what brought you from Cook County to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts?
It's the
Well,
invisible
that's
man
the way
running
I was
from the
when you
courtroom,
get
in camera.
Did you cry? And what year was that?
Well, we left in '87, and in the right after Thanksgiving, and I moved to started in the Worcester Regional Office in 1988.
Can you give us, give the jury, please, a sense of how the medical examiner's office was sort of structured in terms of locations and whatnot?
Here in Massachusetts,
Yes, please.
at that time, back in '88, we had 4 regional offices. It was the office on the Cape, the office in Boston, the Worcester Regional Office, and then the Western Regional Office. There were also autopsies that would be done in the Greenfield area, but they were done by hospital doctors.
Did you have the opportunity during your time here in Mass to work in all or some of those branches?
I worked for a time in the Boston office, the Worcester office, and the Holyoke or the Western Regional Office.
Now, when you first joined the Massachusetts Medical Examiner's Office, was that as an associate medical examiner?
I don't remember the title, but basically as a forensic pathologist.
Okay.
That may have been our title, I just don't remember.
Did you fulfill a variety of roles, some of them management during your time in Massachusetts?
For about almost 2 years, I was the acting chief medical examiner for Massachusetts.
And then did you also have a stint as a deputy chief?
Yes, after that, I was the deputy chief.
And what sort of additional responsibilities did those titles come with?
Well, acting chief medical examiner, there were a lot of administrative things that had to be done, as well as meetings with people at public safety. I didn't do a lot of autopsies, and it was mainly management.
And you said your role as deputy chief was about what, 12 years or so?
I don't remember the exact years,
Okay.
but I was in the the Worcester Regional Office for several years.
And other than that time when you were the acting chief, were you routinely performing autopsies as part of your duties?
Correct.
Before we move on, Doctor, during your career, did you have any sort of professional affiliations or memberships in any forensic pathologist-related groups?
Yes, I belong to the National Association of Medical Examiners and the American Academy of Forensic Scientists. I think that was the title.
Doctor, we used the term autopsy quite a bit this afternoon, but I'd like to just dwell down into that a little bit and describe for the jury, please, what an autopsy is in broad terms.
Well, an autopsy is a medical examination of a dead body, and you do it to determine the cause and the manner of death.
How do you go about doing that?
Well, you mean as far as each case or each autopsy?
Each autopsy.
The body is brought into the autopsy room. If it's been stored overnight in the cooler, the technician brings it out, puts it on the autopsy table. The technician has already done the height and weight. And then once it's on the table, you start doing the photographs. In Chicago or in Cook County, we had our own photography system. But here in Massachusetts, the police would come or other investigating agencies would come up and take pictures if they felt it was needed. After you do the pictures, then you start the external examination. You look at the hair, the eyes, the teeth, the mouth, looking at the entire body and making notes if there's anything there like scars, tattoos.
Scars.
You look at the back of the body. And then after you've done the external examination, then you would do the internal examination.
Before we get to that, doctor, just still on the topic of the external, is there any sort of trace evidence or evidence collection from the body itself?
It depends on the things that the police suspect.
Yes, Your Honor.
Overruled.
So when I say trace evidence on the body, what does that mean to you?
That would mean like evidence for the police for the crime scene. Are you talking about clothing or anything else?
Anything and everything it might be to you.
Well, to me, that would mean taking evidence off the body that would be used by the crime scene for case investigation, like head hair, pubic hair, things like that.
Fingernail clippings?
Correct.
Okay. Can x-rays be performed as well prior to the internal examination?
Yes, if you felt that it was necessary to do an x-ray, you could do that.
Now, you mentioned that there's an internal component to an autopsy.
Yes, the internal examination.
How did you go about that?
Well, the first thing you do is make incisions across the chest and the abdomen. You examine all of the internal organs in place, looking to make sure they're in the right locations. And then if there's any collections of blood or fluid, you would remove them and weigh them or measure them. Then at some point, you would take the toxicology specimens. You always try to get heart blood, peripheral blood, bile, urine, and you would put those in the special tubes to be sent to the laboratory for drugs and poisons. After you've done that, you take out each organ individually and examine it. Like you would take out the heart and then do the heart examination, looking at the coronary arteries, the valves. You would do the same with the lungs and go on to all the organs and examine them that are in the chest and the abdomen. After you've done all that, the technicians would make the incision in the scalp, and a saw is used to remove the skull, and then you examine the brain.
Going back to the internal organs for a moment, when you say you're examining each particular one, do you also weigh them?
Oh, yes.
And why is that?
Sometimes organs are too large or too small, and that could indicate some disease process. For example, if you have hypertension, your heart will be too large and will weigh more.
With respect to examining the brain, is that both a visual and more of a neurological aspect to it as well?
Well, you examine it externally
Yes.
to feel for look for any blood or any injuries. Then you would slice it. You would cut it to see if you could find anything. If you were worried about some real specific thing in the brain, you would send it to a neuropathologist.
Are there any other steps to a so-called standard autopsy that I haven't covered yet?
Not that, well, when we examine each organ, like the heart or the liver, we would take small sections of tissue and put them in formaldehyde and save them for.
But you
a
didn't
long
do
period
any of
time
this
in case
stuff
we had to go back and
No.
do histology. Look at
on the
tissue.
body.
She only read a
In the
report.
process
She
of
never saw the
conducting
body.
an autopsy and trying to determine why this person or how this person died, do you also take into account information from outside sources, specifically law enforcement, paramedics, and the sort?
Yes,
Overruled.
that's what he's saying.
C-Swip, this one is for you. It's been long coming.
He's been working on it. I saw him. Aw, look at him. Aw, see, look at him. Look at him peeking out. Hey, calm down.
That'll be on my Etsy store.
Yes.
People who haven't followed along in our trials before, they're gonna be so mesmerized by the stupidity of the things I do.
You're gonna be so lost. Like, wait, what? What trial is that from? We know all that. You don't even have to tell us. Your loyal followers know.
Flip my camera. I just flipped my camera.
Yeah, it was backwards still.
I don't know why I took it off mirror my camera. I don't get this. Maybe I mirrored my camera in the. It looked right to me.
Says you want to mirror it. Can you flip the camera? Like,
I just had it the other way around.
I was just wondering if you tried it again and see if it changes. No. I mean, I get the gist of it, but I get it.
Well, now I do it the other way around.
I just love it. Everyone, this is what Baker's channel brings to everybody.
I'm so sorry if you're new here, but we have been watching trials for what, half a year, and
Yeah. Like it.
somewhere along the way we'll find something stupid that we're gonna talk about. My camera is the right way. I think I'm mirroring it on the camera and then I'm mirroring it again on the back end, so everything is wrong. But cabinet gnomes is from the Bradley Yawn case because they are supposed to explain how he didn't murder a person. We also have spider ninjas, the invisible man, a man with a cocktail glass.
I'm sure you.
Unfortunately, I didn't get that
I can't remember. what
picture.
it is.
In the course of conducting an autopsy and determining how and why someone died,
Yes, it's checked and unchecked. I tried
other
both
information,
ways.
be it from paramedics, first responders, etc.
Put the
Well, we
video back.
always have information even before we start the autopsy.
No, I want to show my
because,
pretty face.
The people who
Well,
are
I mean,
reporting the
can't
death
stare
are
at you
usually
all
the
day.
police officers.
So
The-
when a death is first reported to the medical examiner's office,
Yes.
without getting into details, is it standard practice that some information is relayed to your office?
Absolutely, in the case.
Oh, yeah, and we have
technicians
corner
write it down,
kissing as
and then
well.
be Put in the file.
Yep.
Can your
Corner.
office decline a case? And do you know what I mean by decline a case?
Yes, yes, I do. I'm trying to think if we've ever declined cases. You could.
I
if
don't-
It doesn't come under the jurisdiction.
Maybe.
The medical examiner's office works under
Now I have to put
Massachusetts
this one
general
back on.
laws, and they specify what we're supposed to do or not do. But I can't remember ever declining a case.
Are there my next question, are there certain categories of deaths that would almost automatically trigger the medical examiner's office taking a look at it?
Yes,
Okay, for example, like a suspicious death, perhaps a suicide, suspected overdose, those types of categories?
correct.
Okay, but not everybody who dies in Massachusetts automatically is autopsied by the medical examiner's office, right?
No, absolutely not. It has to be reported to us by the police agency, or if it were
Just reporting. It has to be reported to you.
reported by someone to us.
Now I flip the camera and the camera
And in
head.
that case,
Maybe that
information
changes
is
stuff.
what we start with for our, investigation or whatever we do.
And doctor, between your
There it
time
is.
in
Yep,
Cook
now
County and your time in Massachusetts, can you give the jury an estimate of how many autopsies you yourself would have conducted?
Over the
Oh,
almost
30 years, it would have been about 5,000.
Yara, this may be a good time to break.
Richmond, can I step down?
So I just have to not switch and then switch it on.
The jury,
mirror this one.
First, I
Yeah.
want to apologize that
Okay.
the afternoon break took a little bit longer than I expected. That was because what I had to do took longer than I anticipated. But we are breaking forward today. I'll ask you to be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Once again, I'm instructing you not to discuss this case with anyone, including each other, to avoid any contact with any participants in this case, to refrain from any outside research or investigation concerning this case, online or otherwise. And again, please do not listen
you
to,
sure did.
watch or read any media account concerning this case. And we'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Did you say 9 o'clock?
You could. No, not to. Wow.
That's what I heard.
Right, research or investigation concerning this case, online or otherwise. And again, please do not listen to, watch or read.
I can
any
be in bed before
media
midnight.
account concerning this case. And we'll see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock.
Well, 9 o'clock, and I have to bring us all up. I'm terrible at this. It's almost like I never streamed before. Well, hello everybody. Hello, Dr. Nick.
Oh man.
Yeah, there's a mixer's bottle right there. It's the sour mash, not the bourbon. It's a bourbon, but it's a sour mash. And good morning, Pixie. And we're glad we can make you laugh because that's what we're here for. Because everyone could just go to Lawn and Crim and watch the case, but we're here to make it fun and make stupid drawings. If you consider thinking, well, I would really like to see more of this stupid guy's drawing, please subscribe. Come back tomorrow. We're gonna jump off like today at 8:45 if nothing else comes up. And in the meantime, in the top of the chat, I put a link to sell. I think David is still going, so there's a lot of places you can go from here. I will go to bed, and again, all of my painting drawings will probably be uploaded to MLS Law Show's Discord. So please consider joining as a member on his channel so you get access to his Discord. He's nice enough to leave me a little subspace in there. And he has one of the cheapest memberships on the YouTube. So and it's a lot of fun. You'll meet crazy people in there like me, and nice people like Jamie.
Yeah.
Farrell.
Very wholesome. I'm very wholesome.
Lawn and Crim is always here. Well, one of the benefits of being stupid is you say a lot of stupid things, and they could be real fun. But everyone, thank you so much for another great stream. I couldn't do it without the interactiveness of the chat, because sometimes you get really bored sitting here for this many hours. Luckily, I had Jamie and I have all of you. 8:45 tomorrow. Probably something new will pop up that I'm gonna draw tomorrow again. So if you're not interested in the case, come back for the drawings. And Farrell will, if you join the Discord, give you some wholesome ducks. And Jamie, I said ducks.
I know.
Jamie, we'll follow the case of the corner kisser again tomorrow. Thank you
Can't
so much
wait.
thanks so much for joining me again today. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. Chat, I love you. I love Jamie more. You know that. See you tomorrow.
Bye.